In the year 1984, a show came out, a show called Transformers, a show that would later be known as Transformers Generation 1. Now, this show had a plethora of fantastic characters, believe it or not, yes. It aired for 2 seasons before there was the movie, then season 3. But we're just talking about seasons 1 and 2 right now, and there are many characters in it who, in this animated 1980s cartoon, were actually quite well written. And my personal favorite, and the character whom I believe to be the most well written, is Starscream. Now, Starscream, as a character introduced to children watching this children's show, is fantastic. He is exciting. He was something new for me as a child watching this character who's round and dynamic and very multifaceted. Now, from episode 1, we see that Starscream is not only second in command of the Decepticons, but he also has a great deal of ambition. These ideas and thoughts that maybe he would be the rightful leader of the Decepticons, the leader that the Decepticons need. In his own words, he is the leader of the future. And as the episodes progress in Season 1, we see more and more his attempts to sway other Decepticons towards his cause, towards the belief that Megatron has led them to failure time and time again, and that perhaps Starscream is the rightful leader. All the while, we see him acting the sycophant to Megatron, putting up the facade that he is the obedient fool, if you will, who does everything Megatron commands. He's loyal, second in command. Additionally, throughout the show, Season 1, we see more and more that Starscream is extremely intelligent, he's clever, but he hides his intelligence through this facade of the sycophantic servant. We see when Megatron is injured, we see these flashes, this glint in his eye, and these facial expressions, these churns, and his actions show subtly that he's waiting for the right time, the right opportunity. And whenever the right opportunity presents itself, he hatches these plans, these schemes, and attempts to betray Megatron, even sometimes working almost coinciding with the Autobots he will do whatever he needs to do to put himself on top and to put himself as the leader of the Decepticons. Now, throughout Season 1, he attempts to betray Megatron over a dozen times, not all of which fully come to fruition to the point that Megatron fully understands his schemes. But a big question many people have with the Transformers, a criticism if you would, is so why does Megatron keep Starscream around if Starscream continuously attempts to betray him? Well, here's why. It's because of Starscream's immense usefulness. Starscream is a scientist, he's a warrior, he's a strategist, he has immense usefulness, he is immensely useful for the Decepticons. Whenever Megatron needs something done, it is either Soundwave or Starscream who he relies on, mainly Starscream, for the military aspect of things. And without Starscream, the Decepticons, as we see them in Generation 1, would not be able to function to the capacity that they do. So that is why Megatron, he needs Starscream. Without Starscream, he doesn't have someone to lead the Seekers. He doesn't have the military strategist, which Starscream is. As we progress to Season 2, Starscream begins getting more and more. He already had quite a bit of screen time in Season 1, to the point that I myself believe him to be the main character of the series. But now in Season 2, he begins getting entire episodes devoted solely to himself. There's the episode where he attempts to, Astrotrain, and Blitzwing work together to betray Megatron and trap him, but Blitzwing and Astrotrain betray him, which was dumb because obviously then their plans are foiled. But we get Starscream's Brigade, and then another episode after we get these 2 episodes where Megatron has finally had enough, and he exiles Starscream from the Decepticons, and Starscream builds his own army, which he uses to fight the Autobots and Decepticons. It's this whole thing of him. He takes these parts he finds on this island, he builds these Transformers, he goes to Cybertron and steals these renegade Decepticon personality components from a detention center and implants them into these Decepticon, these bodies he's constructed, because he's smart, he's a scientist. And he builds them, and he creates his own army, essentially, with the Combaticons, who can even turn into the Combiner Bruticus. And he leads this campaign against Megatron, which he would have succeeded by the end of Starscream's Brigade, the first episode, if the Stunticons had not intervened. Starscream had Megatron clutched in the palm of his hand, basically, and Megatron had acknowledged that Starscream was the new leader of the Decepticons. Then the Stunticons come in, and Starscream is exiled to Cybertron, where him and the Combaticons take over. He actually betrays the Combaticons and leaves, thinking it to be in his best interest to go solo. But eventually the Combaticons, Starscream arrives on, the Combaticons arrive on Cybertron and defeat Shockwave and his forces. Then Starscream allies himself with Shockwave to retake Cybertron. And this is Starscream. He adapts. He will make anyone his ally. He will do whatever he needs to do to survive and to put himself in the ideal position. So then he allies with Shockwave. Then he betrays Shockwave and attempts to gain more favor back with the Combaticons, who have by now no longer have the servitude they once had towards him. And then he attempts to, the Combaticons make this machine which will direct the Earth towards into the sun, 80s cartoon stuff. But Starscream, then hijacks and contacts Megatron, telling him that he's going to maneuver Earth right into the sun and obliterate him if he doesn't name him leader of the Decepticons. Eventually, the Autobots and Decepticons are both forced to team up to defeat Starscream, and then they work together to defeat the Combaticons. And Starscream is allowed back into the fold of Megatron by the end of the episode, under the condition, because he was able to secure the Combaticons to make it so the Autobots believed they were destroyed, but so that they actually weren't, and now Megatron and the Decepticons have these new allies. But the point being, Starscream is an extremely round, and yes, dynamic character. He does change. We see in an episode, Fire in the Sky, that he actually had empathy. Yeah, he has empathy. He cared about another Decepticon, Skyfire, Jetfire, depending on which continuity you're talking about, that he had a friend, and that he is able to care about other Decepticons when they find his Jetfire's frozen corpse body in the Arctic. And that's the first time we see, that's back in season 1, when we see Starscream show emotion, and show that he actually cares for his people. But as the series progresses, we see that Starscream is very adaptive, and he does change. By the Transformers of the movie, we finally get to the moment that we've all been waiting for. As anyone who's been following Starscream, we know that his main goal is to become leader of the Decepticons. And that happens in Transformers the movie, 1986, which is just fantastic. It follows directly after the season 2. And Starscream Megatron and Optimus have their fight. Megatron is severely injured, and Starscream throws him out of Astrotrain when the Decepticons are retreating through space. He gets rid of him. Megatron's out of the way. Starscream he has a coronation on Cybertron. Astrotrain places a crown on his head. The Constructicons blow their horns, and Starscream is the new leader of the Decepticons. And that moment, fantastic. That was the epitome of everything Starscream had strived for. Then Galvatron shows up and shoots him, kills him. It's a pretty awesome scene. You should watch Transformers the movie 1986. But here's where the dynamic bit comes in, because then we see we learn in season 3 that Starscream, his spark is actually immortal. So there's a ghost of Starscream. Starscream's Ghost is episode, which is an episode is called. And it's clunky. It's whatever. He came back. Well, yeah, he came back. He's the most popular Transformer there is. Anyway. But this is a very different Starscream. Not overly different. He's still the same in a lot of ways, but he's learned from his mistakes, and he is certainly changed. He is now able to possess other Transformers, and he attempts once more to dethrone Megatron. And when he is initially unsuccessful, he actually goes to Unicron's head. And he kidnaps he possesses and blackmails Scourge and other Decepticons into working with him and for him, and to rebuild Unicron, and in order to regain his body, and which inevitably he succeeds, but he does betray Unicron, killing him once more. But then Starscream has his own body, and that's the end that we see with him for Generation 1. Starscream is a fantastic character, and just amazing. His design, his voice, the voice actor for him, fantastic, okay? And after Transformers Generation 1, there was a show called... There were several shows, but mainly the one that I'm going to be talking about, giving my opinion on Transformers Animated and then Transformers Prime. So when we see the Starscream in Transformers Animated, this is a far stronger Starscream than the one we see in Generation 1. Generation 1 Starscream is, powerful, but this Starscream, or it may just be that in Transformers Animated the Autobots are far weaker than their Generation 1 counterparts. This version of Starscream is just as disloyal, just as ambitious towards Megatron with the Decepticons. Only in Episode 1 he actually kills Megatron, and then serves as the primary villain for the first main portion of that season, until Megatron is brought back to life, which he then goes on a campaign to destroy him. But throughout this first half of the season, we see that Starscream is easily able to defeat all of the Autobots, which may just be that the Autobots are far weaker in this show, combined with the fact that this Starscream is far more powerful. And then, after the Transformers Animated released in 2008, I believe it had 2-3 seasons. I only watched the main, Starscream-focused episodes. But Starscream proves again, no matter what show he's in, he is the most interesting character by far. He has the most going on. And that is exemplified to an extreme with Transformers Prime. Transformers Prime, man, it is a very different visual interpretation of Starscream. But wow, he is a... If Starscream could be dialed up to 100, increasing everything about him that makes him such a unique character, that happens in Transformers Prime. And Transformers Prime is, I'd say it's far more slow-paced than any other Transformers show. And that really works to build up Starscream's character. We get 3 seasons of Starscream really understanding who he is, and him going on this journey of self-discovery, and really trying to find his place in the world, as well as, throughout betraying Megatron time and time again. And it is fantastic. So what's my point? My point is that Starscream is the greatest character in history, in any form of media. Starscream is fantastic. Even in the show, the Netflix recent show, Transformers War for Cybertron, 3-parter, 20-minute episodes each part, so really an 18-episode, 20-minute show in total. A lot of people disliked it. It had Starscream in it, and Starscream is pretty awesome in it, because Starscream is awesome in any continuity, in any show he's in. Starscream is the greatest character in the history of everything and anything. He is.